For years, you have been told the same thing. If you want to fight inflammation after 60, take your fish oil. Every doctor says it. Every health article repeats it. It is practically gospel at this point. Here is the problem. A clinical trial published in the journal Cell found something that quietly contradicts everything you have been told about inflammation and supplements after 60. It involves a simple drink you can make in your own kitchen tonight. Something that costs less than $2 and takes under 2 minutes to prepare. Most people over 60 are spending money every single month on fish oil capsules that their body can barely process anymore. And the worst part? They have no idea. Nobody told them. Nobody explained what changes after 60 that makes fish oil so much less effective. Meanwhile, something far more powerful has been sitting on the grocery shelf this entire time. I am Dr. Richard James. After more than 3 decades in clinical practice, I need to explain something about inflammation after 60 that changes this entire conversation. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you why your fish oil may not be doing what you think it is doing, what one drink works better according to published research, and exactly how to make it and when to drink it, starting tonight. First, you need to understand why this matters so much. Chronic inflammation after 60 is not just aching joints or morning stiffness. It is the silent accelerant behind heart disease, cognitive decline, type 2 diabetes, and vascular damage. Researchers call it inflammaging, a low-grade, persistent inflammatory state that ramps up dramatically as you get older. It does not announce itself with pain. It builds quietly, year after year, weakening your arteries, shrinking your brain volume, and breaking down the cartilage in your joints. How many people do you know over 65 who take fish oil every single day and still wake up stiff, still feel that deep fatigue by 2 in the afternoon, still have elevated CRP on their blood work? That disconnect between what they are taking and what they are feeling is not a coincidence. There is a biological reason for it. Now picture a woman named Kathleen. She is 72, a retired librarian from Portland, Oregon. She lives with her husband, sees her 3 grandchildren every weekend. For 12 years, Kathleen took fish oil every single morning without fail. At her last checkup, her doctor ran a CRP panel. Her C-reactive protein was still elevated. She was doing everything right. She looked at her doctor and said, "I have done everything you told me to do. What am I missing?" That question haunts me, because the answer is something almost nobody takes the time to explain. Your body after 60 processes fish oil differently than it did at 40. Once you understand this one biological shift, everything else I am about to share clicks into place. Here is what happens to fish oil inside your body as you age. The digestion of any fat-soluble supplement depends on 2 things, your stomach acid and your bile production. Both of those decline with age. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition has documented that gastrointestinal changes in older adults can impair the absorption of fat-soluble nutrients. A study in gastroenterology found that pepsin output was reduced by approximately 40% in adults over 65. Your pancreatic enzymes slow down. Your bile gets thinner. Fish oil is a fat. It needs all of those systems working at full capacity to break down, absorb, and deliver EPA and DHA into your bloodstream. When those systems weaken, the capsule you swallow passes through your body barely touched. So what happens to those omega-3 fatty acids you paid for? Most of them leave your body without ever reaching the cells that need them. This is the part that frustrates me the most as a doctor. Millions of seniors take fish oil faithfully, month after month, believing they are protected. Meanwhile, the inflammation keeps building because the omega-3s never made it past the digestive bottleneck. There is another layer to this. Most commercial fish oil capsules use a synthetic form called ethyl ester. In a younger digestive system, that form works reasonably well. After 60, it becomes a real problem. A landmark bioavailability study led by Jorn Dyerberg, published in Prostaglandins, Leukotrienes, and Essential Fatty Acids in 2010, tested 72 healthy volunteers over 2 weeks. The study found that the ethyl ester form of fish oil had only 73% of the bioavailability of the natural triglyceride form. Earlier research by Lawson and Hughes found that ethyl ester omega-3s had just 20% absorption when taken on an empty stomach. Even with a high-fat meal, absorption only reached about 60%. Think about that for a second. You are spending money every month on a capsule, and your body may only be absorbing a fraction of what is inside it. Does that change how you feel about your current supplement routine? It should. Here is something else most people never consider. Even the omega-3s that do get absorbed face another problem. Fish oil works by supplying EPA and DHA, which your body uses to produce anti-inflammatory compounds called resolvins and protectins. That process requires enzymes that also decline with age. So you are dealing with a double hit: less absorption and less conversion. The end result is that the anti-inflammatory benefit you are counting on may be a fraction of what it was 20 years ago. This is not your fault. You took the supplement your doctor recommended. The problem is that the recommendation was based on research done primarily on younger populations with fully functioning digestive systems. So now you know why fish oil has been quietly letting you down. Here is where the science takes a surprising turn, because the alternative is not some exotic supplement you have never heard of. It is something that is probably already sitting in your refrigerator. The drink is kefir. Not kefir alone. Kefir combined with a specific type of fiber that turns it into something your gut has been starving for. In 2021, researchers at the Stanford School of Medicine published one of the most striking nutrition studies in years. The study, led by Justin Sonnenberg, Erica Sonnenberg, and Christopher Gardner, appeared in the journal Cell. They took 36 healthy adults and randomly assigned them to one of two diets for 10 weeks. One group ate a high-fiber diet. The other group ate a diet rich in fermented foods, things like yogurt, kefir, kimchi, and kombucha. The results were stunning. Every single participant in the fermented food group showed reduced levels of inflammation. Specifically, 19 inflammatory proteins decreased, including interleukin-6, one of the most critical markers of chronic systemic inflammation and a driver of conditions like type 2 diabetes and rheumatoid arthritis. The study also found that 4 types of immune cells showed less activation. Microbiome diversity increased across the board. The high-fiber group? No significant change in inflammatory markers. No increase in microbial diversity. Justin Sonnenberg called it a stunning finding. One of the first demonstrations that a simple dietary change could reproducibly reshape the gut microbiome across a group of healthy adults. Christopher Gardner noted that the anti-inflammatory effect was consistent across every participant in the fermented food group. Not some of them, all of them. Now here is the critical connection. Fish oil tries to reduce inflammation from the outside. It works downstream, suppressing inflammatory signals after they have already been triggered. Kefir and fiber work at the source. They rebuild the environment inside your gut where inflammation actually begins. Why does that distinction matter? Because suppressing a signal is not the same thing as eliminating the cause. If your house has a smoke alarm going off because there is a fire in the kitchen, you can remove the batteries from the alarm. The noise stops, the fire does not. Fish oil is closer to removing the batteries. Kefir and fiber put out the fire. I will give you the exact protocol in a few minutes. First, you need to understand exactly why this combination works at the cellular level. Because once you see what is happening inside your gut, you will never look at inflammation the same way again. When you drink kefir, you are delivering billions of live probiotic organisms directly into your digestive tract. These are not the 1 or 2 strains you get in a typical probiotic capsule. Kefir contains dozens of bacterial and yeast strains that colonize your gut lining. That diversity is the key. The Stanford study showed that it was the increase in microbial diversity that correlated most strongly with the reduction in inflammatory markers. More species means a more resilient, more functional gut ecosystem. Here is where fiber becomes essential. Those probiotic organisms need fuel. Fiber, especially prebiotic fiber like ground flaxseed, psyllium, or inulin, acts as the food source that keeps those organisms alive and multiplying. Without the fiber, the probiotics pass through. With the fiber, they thrive. When those probiotics meet that fiber inside your gut, they produce something called short-chain fatty acids. Think of them as tiny anti-inflammatory messengers that your gut sends directly into your bloodstream. The most important one is called butyrate. Research published in Nutrients has shown that butyrate does 2 critical things. It repairs the lining of your intestinal wall. It signals your immune system to dial down the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines, including TNF-alpha, IL-6, and IL-8. That is not a metaphor. It literally switches off the inflammatory signals at the source. Stop and think about that for a second. Fish oil tries to quiet inflammation after the fire has already started. Butyrate from kefir and fiber rebuilds the firewall so the fire never starts in the first place. Here is the part most doctors never take the time to explain. When your gut lining breaks down, and this happens more frequently as you age, tiny fragments of bacteria called lipopolysaccharides leak through the intestinal wall into your bloodstream. Your immune system sees them as invaders. It fires up inflammation. Not for a day, not for a week, permanently. That is what chronic inflammation actually is after 60. An immune system that never stands down because the gut barrier keeps leaking. Have you ever wondered why your inflammation markers stay elevated even when you are eating well, exercising, and taking supplements? This is often the answer. The gut barrier has been compromised, and until you fix it, nothing you swallow is going to solve the underlying problem. Butyrate seals those leaks. It strengthens the tight junction proteins between your intestinal cells, the occludin, the claudin-1, the zonulin. Research published in Frontiers in Immunology has confirmed that short-chain fatty acids, particularly butyrate, increase intestinal barrier function and reduce the entry of endotoxins into the blood. When the barrier holds, the immune system calms down. The inflammatory markers drop. The cycle breaks. Now you understand the science. Your gut is the control center. Fix the gut, fix the inflammation. So here is exactly what I want you to do, starting tonight. Step 1. Buy plain, full-fat kefir. Not vanilla, not strawberry, not low-fat. Plain. Check the label. It should list live active cultures. Most grocery stores carry it in the dairy section right next to the yogurt. If you can find a brand that lists the specific probiotic strains on the label, even better. Step 2. Add 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed. Stir it in. That is the drink. Under 2 minutes, under $2. If you do not tolerate flaxseed, you can substitute 1 teaspoon of psyllium husk or a half teaspoon of inulin powder. All 3 are prebiotic fibers that feed the probiotic strains in the kefir. Ground flaxseed is my first recommendation because it also delivers omega-3 in the form of ALA and provides lignans with their own anti-inflammatory properties. Step 3. Drink this once a day. Morning is ideal, on an empty stomach or with a light breakfast. Consistency matters more than timing, so if evening works better for your routine, that is fine. Step 4. Start slow. If you are not used to fermented foods or fiber, begin with half a cup of kefir and 1 tablespoon of flaxseed for the first week. Let your gut adjust. Increase to a full cup in week 2. Step 5. Commit to this for 30 days. Pay attention to 3 things: your joint stiffness in the morning, your energy by mid-afternoon, and your digestion. Those are the earliest signals that the inflammatory cycle is breaking. Why 30 days? Because the gut microbiome does not change overnight. You are essentially planting a garden. The kefir delivers the seeds. The fiber is the soil and water. It takes time for those new bacterial colonies to establish themselves and start producing butyrate at levels that make a clinical difference. Patience is not optional here. It is part of the protocol. One note on what to avoid. Do not buy flavored kefir loaded with sugar. Sugar feeds the wrong bacteria in your gut and counteracts everything the probiotics are trying to do. Plain kefir, every time. If you are on blood thinners, talk to your doctor before adding ground flaxseed, as flax has mild blood thinning properties. This is not about replacing your doctor's advice. It is about adding information to the conversation. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. My doctor told me to keep taking fish oil. I understand that. I am not telling you to throw your fish oil away. What I am telling you is that for inflammation specifically, the research now points to a more effective path, and it starts in your gut, not in a capsule. If you are lactose intolerant, here is the good news. Kefir has already broken down most of the lactose during the fermentation process. Many people who cannot drink milk handle kefir without any issue. If you still react, dairy-free kefir made from coconut milk is an alternative, though the probiotic strains differ slightly. Some of you are thinking this sounds too simple. I hear that often. Simple does not mean weak. The mechanism is backed by peer-reviewed research from Stanford, published in one of the most respected journals in biology. The simplicity is actually the point. Your gut needs living organisms and the fiber to feed them. That is the formula, nothing more. Here is the one thing that separates people who see real results from people who give up too early. The first week, you might not feel anything. You might even notice a little bloating as your gut adjusts to the new probiotic strains. That is normal. That is not the drink failing. That is your gut recalibrating. By week 2, the bloating typically fades. By week 3, something shifts. The morning stiffness starts easing. The afternoon fatigue lifts. Your digestion smooths out. That is your gut telling you the inflammatory cycle is finally breaking. The research supports this timeline. The Stanford study ran for 10 weeks, and the fermented food group showed progressive improvement in inflammatory markers throughout the intervention period. The gut microbiome needs 21 to 30 days of consistent daily input to establish the new probiotic colonies that produce butyrate at meaningful levels. The first 7 days are the seeding phase. The real results begin in weeks 3 and 4 as the gut barrier repairs and the inflammatory signals start to quiet. You have more power over your inflammation than you probably realize. It does not require an expensive supplement. It does not require a prescription. It starts with 1 glass, 1 morning, 1 decision. Your body has been waiting for you to give it something real, not a synthetic capsule, but living organisms and the fuel they need to protect you from the inside. Now you know exactly how to do that. If you are going to start this tonight, write "starting tonight" in the comments. I read every single one, and I am rooting for you. I am Dr. Richard James. If this video helped you understand something nobody had explained before, subscribe, because next week I am covering the one spice that a Harvard study found can lower blood pressure without a single medication. Take care of yourself tonight. You have earned it. I will see you in the next one.